Happy Father's Day. I'm coming to you via YouTube, I guess we'd call it today. Fortunately, I could not be there with you in person. What you see here in this picture is my Uncle E.B. His name was Elliot Barksdale Slaughter. I love that name. To me, he was Daddy Umpy. I'll get to that in a little bit later. I'm going to try to find another picture I'd like to show you, and it might make a bit more sense of things. Now, and yes, please excuse my technical or knowledge or lack thereof. And this is my biological parents, John and Gladys Martin. Okay. As I said before, most people are lucky to have had one father figure in their lives, much less two. So, I was blessed with two men who helped me to become somewhat somewhat of a decent human being. At least I hope so. So, at this point, let me go back and read some of our scripture that we wanted to get into and see if we can relate this. Our first reading comes from Proverbs, chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. Listen, my sons, to a father's instructions. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. When I was a boy in my father's house, still tender, and an only child of my mother, he taught me and said, lay hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or swerve from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Wisdom is supreme. Therefore, get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Our second reading is from Proverbs, 23rd chapter, verse 22. In fact, I'm going to go on to 23. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom, understanding, and discipline. Interesting. And so now let's go to Deuteronomy, where we find in chapter 5, verse 16, honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long and that it may go well with you in the land your God is giving you. Interesting. And so now finally I come to Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 through 13. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. As I was saying before, most people are lucky to have at least one father figure in their life who helped to mold them and help them to grow, help them become a person to deal with life. I was blessed with having two such men. And so both of these men were very, very, very different in their approach to life, but they did hold one thing in common. They both loved a little boy, myself. One of them was my biological father, John Martin. You saw him earlier. And the other was my dad, even though he was not any flesh blood to me. He was in reality my great uncle, Elliot Barksdale Slaughter. When I was a kid, I called him Dad, Daddy. My mother took exception to that and said that no, he is not your daddy, he is your uncle. But as little kids do, I couldn't quite say uncle, daddy, uncle. So I called him Daddy Umpy. And he was the man who formed me in my formative life. I lived with him all through high school until I graduated. But you know, it's funny that my father and my mother had the sense to realize that they were in no way ready to be parents. And so when I was 6 months old, they gave me to my paternal grandmother's sister to raise. Of course, she, my Aunt Beulah, and Uncle E.B. had never had any kids of their own, so they were very happy to have me. Now, let's contrast. My biological father was a heavy drinker, and he liked to fight, and he was well known for his quick temper. He was ready to fearlessly fight whatever was in his way. In fact, his favorite saying was, "Slip joints, break bones, and bring destruction. Who wants to die?" On the other hand, my Uncle E.B. was quite the opposite. He was more of a gentle soul, far more of a poet than a fighter. When I'd ask him a question about something, he would often recite a poem and tell me to go think about it, find out what it meant to me, and then come back. Anyway, I learned from him that there are other ways to approach conflicts in life, and to take them philosophically, and to be a peaceful way. But what I learned from both of them was to stand up for truth, justice, and right, okay, to care for others. Of course, neither of these two men were particularly religious, but both encouraged me to find my own path in religion. My father's family had been Seventh-day Adventist, and Uncle E.B. was nominally a Baptist, but didn't go to church. Well, when I was growing up, I hung out mostly with Jewish kids, which was a good thing because I came to be very ecumenical in my religious ideas. Of course, growing up in the 60s was quite turbulent, and both of my dads, or father figures, encouraged me to stand up for those who could not do so for themselves, and to hold on to the principles of wisdom and justice, whatever the cost. To boldly face evil, knowing that in the long run, justice will prevail. Sadly, neither of these two men lived long enough to be grandfathers. I wish they were here now so I could talk to them. I still have much to learn. See, my Uncle E.B. died when I was a senior in high school. I was with him when he died. My biological father, John, died as he had lived, true to himself and to his values of rugged individualism. I was in the Army at the time, and when I heard about it, I knew. He chose his path. Needless to say, it was necessary for me to balance the two sides of my upbringing. That's where finding the wisdom to choose my battles with the forces of evil came to the fore. Something I didn't grasp until I was in my last year of seminary, when I began to see a whole new approach to dealing with powers and principalities and evil in high places. It was my Uncle E.B.'s peaceful approach to life that led me to understand the subtleties of systemic evil and to fight evil with truth and justice and love. I'd love to talk to both those two father figures in my life again, and I hope they would be pleased with the man that I have become. I miss them, and I always will. I can only hope that I will be half the man that they were. So, peace, truth, justice. These are the things they bequeathed to me, and those are the things that I hope that we can take to heart and that we can use as we go forth in life. Do not fear. Fear nothing except fear itself. That's what Patton said. His dad would always say, "Go out there, get him, boy." Happy Father's Day. Kick back, relax, have a good one. Blessings.